Adding a significant layer of complication to an already difficult portfolio, Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangaree finds himself embroiled in a serious conflict of interest controversy. Before his appointment to cabinet in May 2025, Mr. Anandasangaree, in his capacity as a member of parliament, wrote letters of support for the immigration application of Senthuran Selvakumaran. This individual had been deemed by the Canada Border Services Agency to be a member of the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, or LTTE, an organization that has been listed as a terrorist entity in Canada since 2006. This revelation has cast a long shadow over the minister's judgment. The timeline of these actions is particularly troubling for critics. The minister's final letter of support was sent just days before he was sworn into Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet. The CBSA had repeatedly flagged Mr. Selvakumaran's application due to national security concerns related to his alleged ties to the Tamil Tigers. Despite these official warnings from Canada's own border security agency, the letters of support continued. In a recent ruling on July 9, 2025, the federal court ultimately sided with the CBSA, upholding its decision to reject the application on national security grounds, a move that validates the initial concerns raised by security officials. In his defense, Minister Anandasangaree has stated that his actions were simply part of his routine duties as an MP, providing standard constituency services to an individual in his riding. He has since asserted that as minister he has instructed his office to cease writing such letters. However, this explanation has failed to satisfy critics, including advocacy groups like Secure Canada, which represents victims of terrorism. They argue that any intervention on behalf of an individual linked to a known terrorist group goes far beyond routine constituency work and demonstrates a profound lack of discretion for someone who would soon be in charge of national security. The Prime Minister has publicly expressed his confidence in his minister, but the political damage is undeniable. The incident raises fundamental questions about the vetting process for cabinet appointments and the judgment of those placed in our nation's most sensitive roles. For a public safety minister whose responsibilities include overseeing the very agencies that flagged the security risk, the perception of a conflict of interest is incredibly damaging. It creates an uncomfortable narrative where the minister's past actions appear to be in direct opposition to the mandate of his current portfolio, undermining his credibility on matters of national security. While headline-grabbing controversies swirl around the minister and specific programs, a broader and perhaps more urgent issue is growing across the country: the perception that violent crime is on the rise. Despite the current government being in power for nearly a decade and implementing progressively stricter gun laws, many Canadians feel less safe in their communities. Reports of increasing gun violence and brazen gang activity in major urban centers are fueling a narrative that Ottawa's strategy is failing. This has led to pointed accusations from opposition parties and some provincial leaders that the government is soft on crime, creating a palpable sense of anxiety among the public. This week, the issue took center stage as Canada's premiers gathered for their meeting in Huntsville, Ontario. Public safety was a key item on their agenda, a clear signal that provincial and territorial leaders are feeling the pressure from their constituents. They are on the front lines, dealing with the real-world consequences of crime in their jurisdictions, and they are looking to the federal government for more effective partnership and a more robust strategy. Their discussions with Prime Minister Mark Carney underscore the growing political pressure to move beyond policies like the gun buyback and focus on tangible measures that can deter criminals and dismantle organized crime networks. Critics of the government's approach argue that there is a strategic misallocation of resources and attention. They point out that while law-abiding gun owners are being targeted by complex new regulations and buyback schemes, the flow of illegal firearms across the U.S. border continues to be a major problem. The argument is that the government is focusing its efforts on the low-hanging fruit of regulatory compliance, rather than tackling the difficult and dangerous work of disrupting smuggling routes and cracking down on the violent offenders who use these illegal weapons. This has created a credibility gap where the government's rhetoric on safety doesn't seem to match the reality on the streets. The debate over bail reform, often referred to as the catch-and-release system by its detractors, further complicates the government's position. Police associations and conservative critics have long argued that changes to the bail system have made it too easy for repeat violent offenders to be released back into the community, where they often commit further crimes. While the government has made some recent amendments, the perception that the justice system is failing to keep dangerous individuals off the streets persists. This contributes to the overall sense that the federal crime strategy is not working, eroding public confidence in the institutions meant to protect them. The role of Canada's public safety minister is immensely challenging, extending far beyond domestic crime and firearms policy. The portfolio is a convergence point for some of the most complex and pressing threats facing the nation in the 21st century. One of the most significant and persistent challenges is that of border security. Managing the long border with the United States involves not only preventing the smuggling of illegal goods like firearms and drugs, but also addressing irregular migration and ensuring the efficient flow of legitimate trade and travel. It is a constant balancing act between security and openness, demanding vigilance and sophisticated resources. Another critical pressure point is the growing threat of foreign interference in Canada's democratic processes and institutions. Recent intelligence reports and public inquiries have exposed the extent to which hostile state actors are attempting to influence Canadian politics, intimidate diaspora communities, and conduct espionage. The public safety minister is on the front line of coordinating the national response to these insidious threats, working with CSIS, the RCMP, and other agencies to protect Canada's sovereignty. This high-stakes issue requires a level of diplomatic and strategic acumen that can test even the most seasoned politician, and any misstep can have serious geopolitical consequences. In parallel with these external threats, the digital realm presents its own set of dangers. The frequency and sophistication of cyber attacks targeting Canadian infrastructure, government agencies, and private businesses are increasing at an alarming rate. From ransomware attacks that can cripple hospital systems to state-sponsored hacking aimed at stealing industrial secrets, the cyber threat is pervasive. The minister must oversee Canada's cybersecurity strategy, ensuring the country is prepared to defend against and respond to these virtual assaults. This is a rapidly evolving field where the threats of today can be obsolete tomorrow, requiring constant adaptation and investment in technology and expertise. Finally, the portfolio is also at the heart of ongoing efforts to reform and modernize policing in Canada. This includes addressing systemic issues within the RCMP, responding to calls for greater accountability and transparency from law enforcement, and navigating the complex relationship between federal, provincial, and Indigenous policing services. These are deeply sensitive and often divisive issues that touch on the core of social justice and community trust. For Minister Anandasangaree, juggling these immense pressures alongside the controversies surrounding his personal judgment and his government's signature policies, the question remains whether the core mission of keeping Canadians safe has lost its focus amidst the political turmoil.